Good morning. Welcome to Gruber Power Services Power Hour. I'm Claude Dixon.
And I'm Elvis Venter.
That's right.
Yeah, I knew my cue this time.
Exactly. Hey, first thing we want to do is thank our viewers. When we sat in here last Friday, we were at 137 subscriptions. We are now at 212. And it's not us making it happen. It's our viewers making it happen. So I want to say thank you to our viewers. I would also ask that you would talk to your colleagues and spread the podcast around and help us continue to grow.
Yeah, I agree with that. For me too, personally, I wasn't tuning in to Gruber, and then I got into it, and then I jumped on the channel, and then I'm actually on the Gruber Motor side now too, as a subscriber, and I encourage anyone to go to both platforms and, tune in and learn a lot and see what's going on here, because they're always pushing and educating and researching. So that's the thing is, for Gruber Motors, Gruber Power, we're researching, we're doing our homework.
That's right.
Present a really strong episode.
That's right. And, the other thing is just not about the two of us here. It's about you. So, provide your own experiences, through the chat up there, through the questioning, your thoughts and your knowledge of, whatever subject matter that's in the mission critical industry, whatever that is, share your thoughts, because we are not experts here. All we're trying to do is generate a lively, fun conversation. And there's another group of folks, though, I would like to thank. And, you don't hear us talk about them much, but they make this whole production possible. And if you guys could come on screen when I say your name, we got Jesse over here. Jesse is integral to what we do. Where are you, Jesse? Showing up yet?
Yeah, I had to throw my glasses on real quick.
Okay, right there, that's Jesse. Shout out to him. He helps us make it happen. And then we have Richard also. Richard, if you could, there he is right there. Awesome, Richard. And then last but not least, we have Aaron in the backdrop over there trying to be cool. There he is over there in the corner underneath the tree.
You know what you just did there?
What's that?
You just did like what they do in a concert when they give props to their band. It's like, and now on drums, and now on guitar. That's what you just did. You gave props to the team.
Well, without them, this isn't possible.
Yeah, I don't know what to do here.
We can't do it.
I just sit down.
Exactly. We just sit down. They have everything prepped and ready for us. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started here. I want to start with a fun image. Can you put image number 1 on the screen, Jesse?
Yep, coming right up.
Now, I think most of you are familiar with the movie Predator. It's like one of my favorite movies of all time. And my favorite line in that movie is Anna and Dutch, the conversation that they have in the jungle, where Anna says, "Hey, there's something else." And Dutch turns around and looks at her, and she says, "His blood is on the leaves." And then Dutch turns around and says, "Well, if it bleeds, we can kill it." I think that is a fabulous line, an awesome line.
Classic.
Yes, but I have an even better one, and that's what this image right here represents. It's the image between Dylan, or the conversation between Dylan and Mac. As Mac runs away, he sees the predator, and Dylan, trying to be a tough guy, chases him down and tries to locate him. He finally locates him, and Mac says, "Over here, over here." And Dylan says, "What?" And Mac says, "Up in them trees. I see you. I see you." It's the same thing in this image right here. If you look at this image real clearly, the red wall in the Grand Canyon, I see you. I see you. Do you guys see the image right in the middle of this picture?
I don't see it.
You don't see it? I see you. I see you.
I see him. Well, I know who it is, so I see him.
That is this guy right here on a 1,000-foot cliff working his way down in the Grand Canyon. And if you just look at the picture, you don't see anything. So you have to discern and look at him, and there he is right in the middle.
Thanks, Claude. I told my wife it was 10-foot cliff. Now you just broke it towards 1,000. I've been selling her that we've been going on the small stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry, babe.
Yeah.
Let me zoom in for you guys a little bit.
See if you can find him. This is not Where's Waldo. Hey, by the way, if I had the Oscar on me, I'd give it to Claude right now for that monologue he just shared with us.
Oh man,
from the Predators movie.
Awesome
you
movie.
Just played like 3-4 characters.
Yeah, there he is right there. There he is right there. Now, what he's looking down at, I have no clue, because I'm the guy that photographed this, but this guy is either perplexed or he sees something down there. Okay, because he's not communicating with me at all. But anyway, I just thought I'd throw that one in there. Okay, and look at that. We're already getting comments all over this one. We'll come back to those a little later. All right, so let's get started here. All right, let's go back to that backdrop picture. Look at that backdrop picture right there. That's an amazing picture. And what this represents is he's cooler than I am. Okay, this dude is a cool guy, but you know what? I'm hotter. I'm hotter because look at the side of this image that I'm on, where all the lights are on, that kind of thing. I'm obviously hotter. This guy is cooler. But what you're looking at here is a nighttime photo from NASA of America and how America is lit up via power at night. Pretty amazing, huh?
You know what I thought that was the first time you showed me?
What?
I thought it was either the T-Mobile coverage or Verizon coverage.
Oh my God.
And I was like, yeah, I don't know. Are we trying to sell phone plans here? Because I was like, last time I saw it, I'm like, yeah, that's what I thought. It's a beautiful phone. I'm like, man, are we selling a phone plan with unlimited data?
Yeah, yeah. You know, the other thing about this is at night. So, you know, people turn off things at night, right? We go to sleep, that kind of thing. But this is mainly at night. So imagine if this was during the day and you overlapped it, you know, it would probably be twice as bright with everything running during the course of the day. So pretty amazing. And
so those are not people's lights on at their house?
Well, kind of. If you look at the Midwest there around, I think that is Lake Erie right there. There's a real bright spot. And I believe that's Chi-Town. And that's his business. That's this guy's home. Okay. Everybody else in the Midwest is in the dark except the Venter residents, which is right off the coast there of Lake Erie. You can see Lake Erie there in the dark.
Yeah, we're probably using all of that. My at least first 150 first cousins that I have.
Yeah, exactly.
That's probably just them using all of that.
Hey, you know what though? Yeah. I hear the Venters are great cooks though. Great cooks, great cooks.
Yeah, you would know.
All right, so we're going to get serious now. We just thought that we would throw that in there, okay? So Elvis last podcast, in my opinion, had a profound question, and he kind of challenged me on some of the things that I was saying. And his question is, why in God's name do I need a UPS/generator? Why would I need this? Why would I need to invest in something like this? And you know what? That stuck with me, and I thought about it. And I go, you know what? Let's do a podcast on the power grid. Power grid. Okay, so that's where we're going to start today. So does 1896 ring a bell with anybody? 1896. Can any of our viewers, without Googling, type in anything that they can remember or know of that happened in 1896? Well, you know what? I know a few things. William McKinley was the president of the United States, a Republican. The Apaches were fighting against our cavalry. They called that the Apache Campaign in 1896. Now, here is one that has me mesmerized. The Cave of the Winds goes dry. Does anybody know where the Cave of the Winds is? No one knows?
Nope.
Okay. Fortunately, I've been to this location. It is part of Niagara Falls. Has anyone heard of Niagara Falls? Has anyone seen a picture of Niagara Falls? Does Niagara Falls have water?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, lots of water. And my older son and I went to the Caves of the Wind on vacation, and it's like you're walking through a hurricane. A lot of water falling, and you have to wear a raincoat, you have to wear a cap, and it's very, very windy and wet. But my point is if you look at this, back in 1896, this particular location at Niagara Falls almost went dry. What is water from a generation standpoint? What does that fall into? Hydroelectric. So we're going to talk a lot about the sources of power, where they come from, what part of the country it's in, and we're going to do that and go from there. So let's start with It's a Puzzle. So Jesse, if you can put up image number 2. Okay, what you're looking at here is the United States of America and Canada, and you're looking at the grid, okay? If you look at this real close, you see 4 colors. There's actually 5 pieces to this grid. 4 of them are listed. You have the eastern interconnection, and I want to talk about that first, okay? But I want to define first what this thing generates. What it generates are megawatts. And the total grid, if you look at all of America, it generates about 1.3 billion megawatts of capacity. 1.3 billion. Okay? So if you break a megawatt down into just watts itself, that's 1 million watts. 1 million watts is 1 megawatt. So let me give you some fun facts here. Do you know how many slices of toast, how many pieces of bread, toast, you can toast up with 1 million?
I think
watts?
you do more than toasting. I do burn it to crisp.
Yeah, 90,000 slices. Okay, do you realize how much butter and jelly you would need? Okay, if you sat at home with 1 million watts and toasted slices of bread, 90,000. If you own a Tesla, specifically a Model S, guess what? You don't have to charge for 3,600 miles. You can drive that car straight without eating, without sleeping for 3,600 miles on 1 million watts.
Wow.
And then one other thing, let's just bring it real home, just the American home. You know, the average American home, you could power that home for 1.2 months on 1 million watts. I think that's pretty amazing. So the eastern interconnection, which is the green, is 700,000 megawatts, and that's 53% of the grid. Okay, pretty amazing. If you look real close down in Texas, you can see that the eastern grid, or I'm sorry, the eastern interconnection, you know, it fuels part of northern Texas there. And then you look at Quebec up top. Quebec is about 46,000 megawatts. You look at the western interconnection, which is 250,000 megawatts. And we're going to break this down so you can kind of like see where the power is coming from, what type of power it is. And then what's missing up here, does anyone want to guess what's missing? We're talking America here.
Up at the top, Alaska?
Alaska. Alaska is missing, but it has its own grid.
Did it float away?
Yes, it's up there. Okay. Yeah, that's a good segue right there. You'll see why in a minute. So there's 5 different pieces to this grid. So get the notion out of your mind that this thing is just one power grid, because it is not. It's actually 5. Okay. So let me stop there for a second, because we have like 5 YouTube either comments or questions.
You know what's fascinating to me about this puzzle, though? That Texas, again, they're always on their own.
Yes.
It proves that statement of Texas. We're talking about Eastern and Western, and then Texas is its own category.
Yeah. And
like we're talking about Quebec, Eastern, Western, and but let's talk about Texas, because they are their own situation. It's wild to me, to all the colors, but you have a section just for Texas, and it says a lot.
Yeah, and you know that's 85,000 megawatts down there. That's 6.4% of the energy in the United States is
Very
right there in
fascinating.
Texas by itself.
Very fascinating.
So we have a comment here from YouTube, Clint Clothier. It's about time to get this party started. We are in it right now. Another comment by the Banana Man. I like the background. Thank you very much. Another comment from Starseed. Is that one of yours, Starseed? That sounds like something on Star Trek.
Yeah, but no,
that's Space Seed. That's right. Space Seed's on Star Trek. But Starseed, I see him. They're talking about you there.
Yeah, the image.
Yeah. And then we have another one from YouTube, the EV Fan. Thanks for the good info, guys. And then he writes, I ain't got time to bleed. Yeah, that's a great line. Great line from Predator. YouTube, Banana Man again. Where's Waldo? The Elvis edition.
Yep.
And then another comment from YouTube. I love it. And another comment from YouTube, without Googling, and a sad face with that. I guess that person's referencing 1896, the trivia there. And then we have a comment from John Monroe. Hi, John. John and I go way back to the old Frito-Lay days. Great mentor of mine, was a great manager, learned a lot from him. Thanks for piping in, John. The night lights maps from NASA, I think it would have to be at least 4,000 to 5,000 miles in orbit to get all of the U.S. in the image. Hey, you know what? That's something I should research. I do not know that. Not sure how far out they were when that image was taken.
I actually have some numbers here for you.
Okay.
So the space station is 254 miles from Earth.
Wow.
It's pretty far out there. And then, Claude, you asked a question. It
Mhm.
might have been rhetorical, but I went ahead and did some math. You asked, you know how much peanut butter and how much jelly that would be?
Oh,
Well,
man.
I ran some numbers.
Okay.
The numbers guy.
So here we are. For jelly, 1,488.12 pounds.
Oh, man.
And then for the peanut butter, assuming a 2-to-3 ratio, is 2,799.86 pounds.
Wow.
That's how much you would weigh after you ate all that.
Wow.
Add those together.
Probably.
tough.
Absolutely.
That'd be tough. That's a great number.
That is.
You're
that
crunching
is.
numbers, Claude, and he gave me the. Now I want a PBJ,
Yeah.
and now he put it into perspective.
Yes. Okay, so let's go back to that grid one more time, Jesse. Just show that image one more time. Yeah, right here. So the point in this image here is just to communicate that there's 5 pieces to this. Okay, it's not all connected together. Although the next slide I'm going to show you, image number 3, I believe it is, will show you where the eastern and western connection is tied together. So you got to focus there on the Rocky Mountains. Okay, that's where everything is connected. There are 7 what they call DC ties, is what that is called. You can see, can you zoom in a little more? Yeah. So I want you guys to keep in mind the original question that we started with. Why would I need a UPS or a generator? So focus on the age when these DC ties were installed, constructed. Look at the age. So at the top there, Elvis, your eyes are better than mine. What does that say? 1985?
1985.
Okay.
You got him.
The top left there, 2003.
Yep.
Okay. Stagel, Nebraska, 1977.
Mm-hmm.
Sydney, Nebraska, 1988.
Mm-hmm.
Lamar, Colorado, 2006.
2005.
Okay. Clovis, New Mexico, 1984. Okay. And then Artesia, New Mexico, I think that's 1983.
Yeah.
Okay. So those DC ties along with the grid, it's aged, very old, and the technology is lacking. A lot of reasons around that we'll go over later. But wanted to kind of like conceptualize this for you. When you think of the number of transmission lines, high voltage transmission lines in the U.S., there are 240,000 miles of high voltage transition lines. If you look at distribution lines, there's 5.5 million miles of distribution lines. We're going to go into each one of those as to what each means. And just to kind of like give you something else to think about, the distance around the Earth, the perimeter of the Earth, or the circumference of the Earth, I should say, is 24,902 miles. The circumference around Jupiter is 272,000 miles. And the circumference around the sun is 2.7 million miles. We have more distribution lines in America, okay, to go twice around the sun. That's a lot of wire.
It's a lot of everything.
That is a lot of wire, a lot of stuff, a
Yep.
lot of stuff out there that needs maintenance, that needs to be upgraded. And of course, you have people doing that. So most of this grid was built in the early 60s and 70s, 1960s and 70s. So I want you to keep that in your mind when we talk about, when you think about why it is I need a UPS and a generator. Any comments on that, Elvis? Anything you want to say?
No, and well, yeah, people need to understand that right now we're laying, intended the foundation of what for what UPS comes into play and generators, because you need a structure.
Right.
So you're talking about let's call it the veins. Let's call it the bloodline. That goes through your body. That's what you're breaking down right now, and you're explaining for the US and for the world of what they need. This is how all of that like central information, that's how it travels, and that's how it was created.
Right.
And we need to know, it's basically you're discussing the nervous system of the US for why we have lights and why we have the power on, and then how UPS and generators complement that, because you need a source, and the power grid is your source. And it
Exactly.
was set up many years ago as you were breaking it down.
Right.
So it's really good information to understand why, and not just jump many levels and be like, well, I just need a UPS, or just take it, because we do take for granted. Oh, you just turn on the lights. Oh, you just turn on your phone. You turn on your car. Well,
Do it
where
every
did this
day.
all come from? How did it
Right.
generate, and what was the origin? So to understand that, for me, it's very fascinating, and I'm learning and constantly growing and evolving.
Yes. Yes. So to your point, let's talk about generation, power generation. That's image number 4, Jesse. Okay. There's basically 7 different forms of power. And this slide right here shows you some of them. You can see hydroelectric, you can see wind, solar, nuclear, natural gas, coal, and oil. Okay, so that's one image. Go ahead and pop in image number 5. Now, these are not balloons. These aren't balloons, okay? And this isn't your mind on drugs, okay? What this is the colors represent what type of power is being generated in a specific part of the United States. So the orange is natural gas. And you won't believe how many natural gas plants there are right now up and running in America. You can see the majority of those are where? East Coast, right? So 1,793 natural gas plants, or 34% of the generation is natural gas. And most of that is the Atlantic coastal states. If you look at gray, anybody want to guess what gray is? What might gray be? It's a fossil fuel. I'll give you a hint.
Coal.
Coal. Okay, and there's a competition kind of like going on between natural gas and coal right now.
Yep.
Natural gas is actually overtaking coal as the cheap source of power generation in America. Right now, there's 400 coal plants up and operating in 19 states. That's about 30% of the power generation, most of it coming out of the Northeast. Okay, natural gas and coal are considered fossil fuels. Okay, let's go ahead and go down to I believe that's a violet color, violet. You're talking there, nuclear. So if you look at all the violet colored circles, that is a nuclear power plant. Now look at the West. Look at the West. The West only has 3 nuclear power plants up and operating. I found that very fascinating, and it made me dig into this even more. So out of 61 nuclear plants, 3 of them are in the West. That's 20% of our power generation capacity as we speak right now. You want to hit these questions, or
Well, one of them's here, right?
what's that?
The
Yes.
nuclear?
Yes, in Arizona, actually.
The Palo Verde plant?
Palo Verde, that's right.
Palo Verde.
Which happens to be one of our customers. We actually do service work out there, sell them batteries to support their equipment. We do preventative maintenance on their UPS systems, and they've got hundreds of them out there. All right, anybody want to guess what blue is? Hydroelectric.
Ooh.
That is correct. And look at where the source of it is. The Pac Northwest.
The top left.
Yes, Washington,
Portland.
Oregon.
Yep.
and Idaho. There's a little bit in Northern Cal,
Mm-hmm.
but most of it is coming out of the Pac
Washington.
Northwest. I find this fascinating when you get back to the original question of why it is I need a UPS or a generator. Because you start thinking of blackouts, you start thinking of droughts, you start thinking about these different things, right? Do you know that in the Pac Northwest, hydroelectric is 90% of their electricity?
Wow.
90. So what does that tell you? That tells you if they have a drought up there, goes on for 4 or 5 years, guess what they better start doing? In fact, they probably should start doing it now.
Solar.
Yes. Or
do something.
Or
Well, you can't even do solar. There's no sun in Seattle. Lord have mercy.
Exactly.
Well, it'll rain.
Yeah. Got to start digging in the ground.
Yeah.
You
Or
gotta
start praying for more rain, which is not a problem in Seattle. You got to start praying for less rain.
Exactly.
Over there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was very interesting. Okay. So hydroelectric power, there's 1,444 plants. Okay. And it's all centralized mostly in the Pac Northwest. That's 7% of power generation. And then we have wind. Wind is green on there. And that makes sense, doesn't it? Where the windmills are, where the wind farms are. You know, you got the Great Plains states there. There's 900, let's just call it 1,000. There's 1,000 wind plant farms. Most of them are located in the Great Plains states. In fact, that's
like Oklahoma.
I'm so glad you brought that up because that was one of my favorite songs in elementary school. Oklahoma, where the wind comes sweeping down the plains.
Yep.
Yes. So now it all makes sense to me.
I only know that because I saw Twister, and they filmed in Oklahoma and in Texas. So I was like, "Where is this place? Does this exist?" Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, so I knew that. I only know about Oklahoma, and because of the wind and the tornadoes and the weather, because of good old Twister.
That's right, right. And you see, it's all right there, right in the middle of the U.S. there, those green dots.
I'd like to say something to the all these blotches that have a purpose and a meaning. These colors. It looks like my kid just went crazy with this Crayola, but to me it speaks the diversity of energy that the U.S. uses, all types, and the utilization of different types. And it also shows how we all use different, how the U.S., like you were talking about Upper Washington, because they are surrounded by a lot of water.
Yes.
They're using that to their advantage.
Yeah.
And now other places, because Arizona doesn't have that
right, exactly.
option. So it's really cool to see that where they are on the map and where they're located and their geography, the type of energy they're using and utilizing, which makes a lot of sense. But then it also makes me question why other places that have a lot of water mass or land mass, why they're not using certain energy that I would expect or maybe think, you know?
Oh, yeah, we're going to get into that one.
It's interesting to see that as well.
Yes. Now, to the point you just made, let's talk about solar. Okay, that's number 6. Okay. Solar, right? You were talking about hydro, how, it makes sense, all the water and all that. Well, where's the sun? Right? Where's the sun? Okay, so solar. There's 1,721 solar farms in America. That's 1% of power generation right now. And most of that is in California. Most of it's in California. There's very little solar in Arizona. The Valley of what?
The sun.
The Valley of the Sun.
That's interesting.
I scratch my head on that one too, but when you read up on it, you see why. And we're going to go into that a little bit later on the cooks and the too many cooks in the kitchen type scenario that's preventing things from getting done. You know, we'll go into that a bit later. And then the last one is oil. And Texas really is, not Texas, but Hawaii, believe it or not, is 90% on oil. And that's less than 1% of power generation in America.
Wow.
I thought that was pretty cool too.
But Texas is known for that too.
Yeah, but they're not generating the natural gas out of Texas. Very little oil, but yeah, you're right. I mean, they've got oil everywhere in Texas.
They do in the body of water. Yes. Yeah.
Now, one point I want to make about solar is considered decentralized. Decentralized. All the other sources of power are considered centralized.
Why is that?
Because you can't put a power plant in your backyard, but you can put solar panels.
I hope that's not a challenge. Don't challenge some of our viewers, because you're gonna see that that's a weird looking farm.
Yeah, you can't.
Just saying.
Exactly, you can't put a hydroelectric dam in your backyard, but you can put solar panels.
I would like to say, and side note on the most current Gruber Motors podcast, they were actually touching on solar for a few different reasons, but Richard and Mark were discussing solar. So if you ever want to even learn more on how solar, like right now we're talking about it in the sense for UPS, but solar, what it impacts EV and Teslas, and that's another good episode and another good channel to chime into, because I was learning more and I was actually seeing the harmonization, I'm going to use your word, that you're going to work with today on even how solar and EV and lithium, how it all comes together. Because I was one of the people that was asking some questions like, well, what's the point of this on the Gruber Motors?
Right.
So solar is, it is a very strong new technology they're using. I remember that I actually watched it on Elon Musk when he introduced solar for housing, and how they were literally factoring homes, I believe, with solar. So solar is the decentralized.
It's up and coming. It's up and coming. So just to capsulize generation. So there's 7 sources. You now know what the percentages are. And there was one thing that I was remiss in defining, and that was what the DC ties are all about. Remember, we went through that. There's 7 of them along the Rocky Mountains that connect the eastern grid to the western grid. The point of those DC ties is to share power. So if there is an overload or you need more capacity in the east, and you can move some of the power from the west along the grid, through these DC ties to the east, and vice versa.
Okay.
It's a converter on the I'm going to give you power, and then it's an inverter on I'm going to receive
I'm going to
this
need power. Yep.
Okay. So that's how that works. That's how they're able to.
That's harmonization.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's
working together.
Exactly. And that's how they're able to balance. They're trying to balance the grid. It doesn't always work out because we still have blackouts. Okay, let's look at some of these questions up here. What happens if the grid goes down? That's pretty easy. Hopefully you have a UPS and those batteries are energized.
Yep.
Okay, that's another thing. The batteries have stored energy, because if your charger's broken and you have a UPS, it's not going to do you any good. So your batteries need to be at the charged state, topped off, ready to go. So if there is a blackout, you've got power. Now, I don't know for how long you're going to have power, because it depends on how much battery backup you have.
Yep.
Let me focus on that real quick. I want you to chime in on this too, Elvis. We talked about form factors in our last one of our podcasts. We talked about the form factor of the UPS. So you have a form factor of a UPS that you can plug in to the wall that will support your computer, all the way up to a megawatt system, which is 1 million watts. So don't think that you have to have this big extravagant unit to protect data. If you want to protect the data on your computer because there's, sentimental stuff on there, there's records on there, then you can just invest on a UPS that you plug into the wall that has enough watts to support your critical load. And of course, you got to have the batteries in there and charged. Okay. So think of it that way. Getting back to the original question of why do I need a UPS? So you can see power generation, you have 5 pieces to a grid. It's tied together in the middle. All right. Jesse, can you put in image 12?
Yeah, 1 second.
So another way to explain what happens if the grid goes down, where Claude said, you need a UPS and you have to make sure your batteries are charged and ready to go.
Yeah.
It's similar to, we're on a hike, or we're in the middle of Lake Pleasant and something happens and you have to call someone, and you have to emergency, because UPS is emergency what? Emergency power.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have your phone and your phone's dead, your phone has no purpose.
Right.
But if your phone is charged, then you can utilize that and you can make the emergency call. So if the grid goes down, UPS, and if you want a generator, which is the gas, and now they even have solar generators where you can buy one, and they have, multiple function, one, a solar and a gas powered one, or just a full gas powered or diesel power. But when the grid goes down, it's really, do you have a generator or do you have a UPS? Something like that happens. That's your only source of backup. There's nothing else until, unfortunately, the grid comes back up.
Exactly. And that's where those DC ties come in, where they're shifting power around. that type of thing. I mean, like right now in Arizona, well, not in Arizona, but in the Valley of the Sun. I mean, we are averaging over the past couple of weeks, 115 degrees.
Yep.
Setting records.
Yeah, yesterday we're setting records right now. Yesterday it was 119. 119. And trust me, everybody in here, when they go home, after they get used to the 85 degrees that they had going on in their house because nobody was there, they crank that thing down. And that puts stress on the grid.
119.
It does. And blackouts, it's funny. Let me go back to that question of blackouts real quick. I just pulled an article today, and I was flabbergasted with the title of this article. The LA Times article labeled Peak Climate Idiocy, however you pronounce that word, after floating occasional blackouts for the greater good. This person that wrote this article was torn apart because this person is suggesting that maybe we can fix our energy crisis by just having everybody bucking up and, hey, you know what? We're going to have a blackout for 5 hours today. Nothing's going to run. Oh, well, we've got hospitals, don't we? Mm-hmm. Oh, we've got this and that. So you mean people are just going to die here? We have people in the desert, that are going to have to, I guess the fan business is going to go off the charts, manual fans, that kind of thing. But anyway, this was torn apart. But these are some of the things that are being floated around right now that, hey, let's just take it in the shorts here and drop everything. And we're just going to black out for the next 5 hours. Deal with it.
I don't think that person's ever blacked out in their life to make that type of statement. 'Cause if they did and they came to, like, oh, what happened around me? Yeah, I don't think that's a good idea.
And if you want to read this article, it literally just came out today, the LA Times, and the title I just read to you, it's by Nicholas Lanum, Fox News.
Well, you said LA Times, so.
Yeah.
Thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we have Kim Estrie from YouTube. She says, Cole, you are correct with that answer. We have another statement from an EV fan. The Texas grid has issues, so does the Southwest. That's enough reason for UPS right there. We need more nuclear. Then another response from YouTube EV fan, Tesla solar roof and Powerwall.
They're referring to the statement I made about when Elon released the solar power for homes, and they were doing solar roofing. So he's talking about the solar roofing. So they literally were selling, instead of having a roof, the whole roof is solar. So it's not solar on top of the roof, but the roof is already completely solar. And they were doing these tiles that is the roof. So it's weather resistant. And that's what they're referring to. And with the Powerwall, and that's what they were discussing. But the solar roof is a complete roof. I looked into it. My father-in-law asked me years ago. And once I told him the price, he said, okay, I guess we're sticking to the normal roof. But that's in reference to what I was talking about, the solar roof.
Do you know what they're doing with the excess energy? What are they? Do they have a battery set up or?
No, I don't. I just remember that release and that launch that they were discussing, and per the solar. I don't know all the ins and outs of it. And I bet Pete would know even more because that's kind of up his alley with all that stuff.
Yeah.
I actually just watched a video on it. There was a guy, I can't remember his name, but he does a lot of like new build concepts and stuff. If you're off grid, then you have a battery backup.
Okay.
Somewhere on the property.
You have a UPS?
Yeah.
Yes.
And some of the newer Powerwalls that are coming out or getting ready to come out, you'll be able to actually throw the energy back into the grid.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they'll have bi-directional
you'll sell it back to the utilities.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating that even with all this technology, with lithium, with solar, they still need that basic battery.
Exactly. And you know what? You break down the mineral composition of that battery. That's how come I don't get into the climate talk. Okay? Because you still got to dig in the ground to make this work. You got to dig all over the ground and extract these minerals to make this concept of renewables work.
Yep.
To where you're sharing energy now because you're able to store it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we can go on and on and on and go back and forth on the whole thing. But yeah, we're trying to clean the air up, but we're hollowing out the earth underground. Two different ways of looking at it. Okay. Another comment from John Monroe. Hi, John, again. Hydrofusion with question marks.
He's asking about hydrofusion.
Yeah.
You can go into that one, Tony Stark, because I don't know much about that.
Yeah. That one there I don't know much about, John. but we can certainly research it, and on the next podcast, come back to you on that one. Thank you for the question. All right, Jesse, let's go to, I think this is image number 10 you're going to put up next. Let's take a look at it.
Number 10, yeah, the nuclear.
Yeah, let's. All right. Okay, just an example of a nuclear plant, what it looks like for those who don't know. All right, image number 11. Okay, that's what a solar farm looks like. Not sure where this one is at. You can see off to the left is actually a solar and wind farm. You can see the windmills.
I'll take a shot, probably California. That's the first place I ever saw a windmill.
Yeah. It's probably Cali.
It's got to be Cali. And look, it's both of them, wind and solar.
Yeah. And you know, look at this.
And hydro probably with the water.
Yeah, but look at this, okay? Look at this a little harder. Look at the footprint. I mean, my God, you got acres and acres and acres of panels. The footprint is huge for solar. So one consideration when you're talking about that sort of energy. Okay, let's go to image 6. Okay, image 6. Okay, so we talked about power generation. Now we're on power transmission. Look at the number of power lines and towers in some parts of the country. This is intense right here. Very, very intense. Let's go to image 66.
Look at the footprint on that.
Yeah.
I would like to add for footprint, what people need to understand, and the viewers, is a footprint, to put it very basic, is when you buy a house or you're in a home, you always want to keep everything neat and tidy.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to utilize the space you have. So either you're going to go out vertical or horizontal, and the footprint for us in the business we do, UPS, is so crucial and important, where people have to understand it's that same concept. When you're at home or you're somewhere and you want to save space and you want to make the best of the space you have, that's what we're referring to on the footprint side.
That's right. Great point.
So important, because that was huge. The solar, how much grass, how much of the earth they had to use,
the investment,
and
just
take
in land.
up, the space. So when we talk about footprint, it's so important.
Mm-hmm.
A customer did that to me, if you don't mind me chiming in. He said, hey, I need 250 kVA. I'm like, great, and tell me the space you have. And he gave it to me only a few weeks later, and I was like, yeah, we need like 4 more feet. And he's like, well, this is all I have, and I need this kVA. And I said, no, look. Okay, you have to tell me the footprint at the beginning, so I know what unit I'm looking at. I was looking at a unit that's like 9 feet wide, and you only have 5 feet.
Wow.
So I need to know. So once he gave me the 5 feet, I found him something with 3 feet of space in the sense of footprint. I found a UPS that'll fit that, or will go inside, or will retrofit, or fit like a shoe.
Right.
So that's the point. When we talk about footprint, it's about saving space. It's about utilizing that space, and we want to save space. We don't want to take up so much and be all over the place.
Right.
We want to minimize the clutter.
And you can really see the change in the footprint dynamic when you look at a 1998 UPS box versus a 2011, same KVA and everything. I mean, it's just a difference between day and night. All right, Jesse, there it is right there. Okay, so we're into transmission now. What you're looking at here is the transmission lines that are across America. That's what we were talking about, the 240,000 miles of transmission lines. This is where they are. And just going back to 1896 for a second, what I wanted to say there was that year is very, very special because the very first transmission line was constructed between Niagara Falls and Buffalo, New York. About a 20-mile difference. That's where the very first line was put in, and it goes back to that whole Cave of the Winds issue with Niagara Falls basically drying up.
Wow.
Okay. Pretty cool. I mean, pretty interesting, that it goes back that far, over 100 years ago.
And the year was 1896.
1896.
The one thing I know about 1896 is I wasn't born, and you weren't either. So when you were talking about that, I was all ears, because like, okay, I need to learn some stuff, because I was sleeping in history class. So I was like, I know I wasn't there, and I wasn't hanging around. So that's really fascinating to understand what was going on in those times and how they were setting up for what's to come now.
Right. Exactly.
That's really great. They set us up.
Right. The other reason why this is separated, the transmission lines are separated, is because these lines are carrying high voltage. Okay. And along these lines, depending on where they are, there's another device called a transformer that steps down this voltage, because if the voltage came in at the rate it is from the power plant, it would just completely destroy, blow your house apart. Okay, because it's very, very high voltage. So it's stepped down through a transformer before it hits distribution, and then from there it goes on to, businesses, homes, that kind of thing. All right, Jesse, image number 7. Just another example of a substation where you can see there's transformers there as well, where the voltage is stepped down before it hits the distribution grid.
It's the power lines.
Yeah.
There it is.
And then image number 8. Okay. That's image number 8, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So just another example of what these power lines look like and the towers associated with them. You can see we got a vast, mighty network across America. And then image number 9. Okay, I want to sum this up through this picture. So what we took you through, if you go all the way to the top right, is the power generation phase. And this was a picture that Elvis selected because he wanted to break this thing down, just simplify it totally. So there you go. So you've got coal, which is the mineral, goes in, it's processed. You have the power station, the generation plant, that goes into a transformer, that goes across the transmission lines that we discussed into another substation. And then from there, the power is distributed. Look at the difference between the distribution lines and the transmission lines. The transmission lines have towers, and they're much more weightier than the lines that are running to residential areas and businesses. Keep in mind, too, that the voltage is stepped down. After that substation, there's transformers in there that step that voltage down, so it's easily handled when it goes into residential areas and businesses.
This is basically like Sesame Street for UPS.
Exactly.
To explain it in a more simple form and to have the visualization of, look how many factors we need to generate the power,
right,
and to even create a power grid.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's needed, and that's what's intended, just so we can have it in our house that we take for granted in our shops and our building. We just, it's easy. We turn it on,
Right. So what's the state of the grid? So it gets back again. I keep reiterating this question. Why do I need a UPS or a generator? Well, you can clearly see that the state of the grid it's very old, very old. We're actually over capacity in some places. That's the reason why we're having increases in blackouts, especially in the state of California and even Texas. Keep in mind that the grid is really 5 different pieces that are kind of like mended together, with the exception of Alaska. Alaska operates off of itself, totally off of hydroelectric power, pretty much. Now, there have been discussions about investment. How do we switch to renewables? All that good business. Well, that's a $2.5 trillion investment.
Wow.
To switch over to renewables. And the thing is that there's 500 companies, 500 different companies that are in the power generation transmission business that you have to work with. So it gets back to the cooks in the kitchen. There's way too many cooks in the kitchen. It's totally political at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? Nothing is getting done.
Wow.
Okay? According to my reading, it's hung up. So the dollars, part of the dollars are there, but then again, there's no agreement on what to go to or where to spend that money. So meanwhile, we suffer and our grid becomes weaker and weaker and weaker because of age. So that's one issue. Power outages have more than doubled over the last 6 years. I didn't say brownouts. I didn't say spikes, surges. I said power outages.
Wow.
So again, it gets back to the question, why do I need a UPS or a generator, okay, in harmony together? Well, at that rate, that's like a 50% increase over 6 years.
Yeah, that's not good.
No work, no modernization of the grid. I see that just getting worse and worse and worse as time goes on. Our government, current administration, wants to be at net zero by 2035. Net zero. I want to ask the audience, who in the audience knows what net zero means? Please chime in. Net zero. We'll wait for those responses. I'll keep moving on here.
My opinion also, with if it grew to 50% for the power outages, I can see homes needing, and people that understand the basic understanding of the UPS and the generator, I could see homes more than usual, because UPS is big deal and we do a lot of businesses, but I could see homes and myself being so utilized, and I could see UPS production and requirements even more.
Right.
Because I don't want to, now I know it's 50% in the last 6 years. Okay, I'm going to need a UPS for my home, which I would never usually need because of these outages.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have to look at more options. And for the home, I'm thinking now I'm going to need one.
Yes.
I want to be down for 50% more.
Yeah, the exact same thoughts across my
big.
mind, because
Yeah.
in my home, I don't have any backup in my
No.
home. You know, I'm one of the, and I'm in the power business.
Yeah.
So imagine the people that
Because
are
it's not common.
Right.
But with these type of outages, and they're becoming so much more frequent, you're going to have to look at avenues that you necessarily didn't think of, because you don't want to be out. You don't want to be. And it also speaks to that. If there's so many outages, it shows how much maybe helpless or certain control we don't have.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's alarming. And that's something to keep your eyes on and keep on the radar.
Right. Here's another factor. Our network, our grid, is designed for 95 mile an hour winds. You got to keep in mind this grid is 40 years old.
Wow.
Some of the components are actually 50 years old, but it was designed for 95 mile an hour winds.
Wow.
I mean, our hurricanes now are generating 135, 150. You know, and that's one of the reasons why Texas blacks out like it does.
Yeah.
You know, is because they get those hurricanes, the infrastructure is not set up
yeah.
for it, and then boom, you're out.
Their weather.
Remember the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They went out.
Blackness.
Yeah.
Yes.
Would you like to touch on some of the
Okay.
comments?
All right. Yes. YouTube, John Monroe. John's still on. That is so cool. Quick, fun verification of the NASA picture. Mount Everest is 5.5 miles high. Visibility is 211 miles. 0.38 miles per mile height. The space station at 250 miles is 9,590 miles. Video capture. That's amazing. That's
It's a great,
amazing.
great image.
Yes. Thank you, John. Appreciate that. Another one from John Monroe, YouTube. Will UPS survive a strong EMP strike? Gonna have to break that one down.
So the electric magnetic pulse.
Yeah.
That kind of brings me in the realm of movies.
Mhm.
Like if we take one of those hits, I don't know what type of impact and how huge that would be if that took place. So I couldn't speak to that in full confidence.
Yeah. Go scroll back up real quick.
Hey, real quick, is he talking about the EMP? Is that something like a solar flare? Is that what he's talking about?
EMP, I know, is the electric magnetic pulse. So I would know something like sonar of some sort or some type of power like that. So I'm not sure exactly what he's referring to. Will UPS, if you're using your UPS at home, I'm not sure if it would be impacted or not.
Yeah.
So
in movies it showed it did, but go ahead, Richard.
yeah, so an EMP is most commonly associated with like a nuke.
Okay.
If a nuke goes off, it emits a large electromagnetic pulse, and a characteristic of those is it shuts down batteries. I don't quite know what exactly it does, but it renders them useless. So in a, God forbid, an event where, nuke were detonated over a city, not on it, but over it, no vehicle underneath it would work.
Okay. So probably that's your answer. Would it survive? No, because it has batteries.
Yeah.
Because of the battery situation, it probably wouldn't survive that. But again, it probably, like you were talking about, Richard, the extent, the radius of how far. So maybe if you're outside that radius, you might be lucky.
Mhm.
But I'm not sure.
Yeah. Another point I want to make too, just on the state of the grid. The grid is being destroyed. If you look at the wildfires, the increase in wildfires, the involvement with wildfires and transmission lines.
Oh man.
You know, you're down. I mean, you guys see this on the news. Yeah, it may not be affecting you, but it's affecting somebody, and those people are down and out. You know, the transmission lines they need to be repaired. You see that every day in the news. Another reason to have some sort of backup power. And then I mentioned this one too. No one is in charge. I'm talking about our leaders, the administration coupled with these companies. Nobody wants to make a decision. It's totally political. Who's getting the dollars? Why are they getting the dollars? What kind of infrastructure? What type of renewable? And it's just hung up right now. And then the solar and wind footprint, you know, in theory, that's a great thing, but the footprint is humongous. We mentioned that last time, and serious investment in land and materials to get that up and running and started. And then, you know, believe it or not, on average, the American consumer experiences 7 hours of downtime, blackout every year.
7 hours.
7 hours. And you know what? That doesn't sound like a lot, but you know what? If you live in Arizona in the desert,
me,
in the
does.
middle of the summer for 7 hours in your house at 119 degrees, guess what? That's a lot. That's a lot.
Me knowing what downtime is, yeah, to me it does.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
I mean, think of Home Depot cells with just manual fans. If that happened for 7 hours, everybody and their brother would be running to the store. They'd be out of stock. So it is a big deal.
True.
And then you multiply that by the number of people that live in America. Yeah, big one there.
More comments.
Okay.
We have them coming into it, which is great. Thank you guys for chiming in and, you know, participating and helping us out and just keeping everything going. Would you like me to read that for One Hungry Clippo, which you love that name.
One Hungry
Clippo.
Yeah.
Telegram lines. He's referring to when you had that one image where it looked like phone lines.
Yeah.
The telegram lines. Is that what it was?
No.
Maybe.
Could have been. Maybe back in 1896.
Yeah, that's what it was referring to, that first line set up between Buffalo and
Correct.
wherever.
Yeah. And then we got one here from Kim.
This is my favorite.
Yeah, Kim Estrie. Did Elvis draw that in art class? Yeah, that totally looked like an artist's conception.
She took a jab at me, maybe how young I am or how young I look. But no, I did not draw that in art class. But now I kind of wish I would.
Yeah. Now here's the kicker, and we're not going to have a lot of time because we only have like 2 minutes left. But I didn't want to miss this one. The China effect. The China effect and their fossil fuel stance. I mentioned earlier that America is slowly evolving out of fossil fuel. You hear the fights on TV and the news, and we are moving to renewables. That's what we want to do.
Renewable energy.
Okay? Shutting down our plants and then moving to solar panels and wind power.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? China is leading the world right now in the most plants being built for fossil fuel. Okay? They're also leading the world right now in solar and wind in terms of infrastructure and building. So as a chess player, I'm thinking about this. Okay, so we're shutting down our fossil fuel.
They're opening them up.
And they're going like game busters building plants. And you know why they're doing it.
Yeah.
But they're doing the renewable part too. They're doing both. That's their backup.
Yep.
And that's world dominance in energy.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is a huge issue. They're building 6 times more new coal plants than any other country. That's equivalent to about 2 new coal plants per week.
Yep.
They lead the world also in the construction of renewables, that's solar and wind. And what they're claiming is that coal is just going to be used as a backup.
Yeah.
So, which, you know, from my viewpoint, I think you always got to have a backup, right?
Backup for your backup for your backup,
Exactly.
like last time.
That's what we're talking about at UPS, and China's doing it. So that's a country definitely to keep an eye on. They're going for world dominance in everything. I mean, they control a lot of things that we don't necessarily control. It's funny. It was my 4th wedding anniversary a couple days ago, and my wife gave me a gift. And I looked at it. It was a nice shirt, just a nice short sleeve.
I thought she would have got your UPS.
Yeah, nice. You know, with palm trees on it. It was light blue. It's going to look great. And, you know, and I lifted it up. I lifted it up like this. And the first thing I saw was
made in
China. And I said, hot damn. You mean to tell me we can't make our own shirts?
You're still going to wear it though.
I am. I'm going to sport that puppy. I'm going to definitely sport that puppy. Well, in closing, Elvis and I definitely want to thank the people that participated. We really
It means a
appreciate
lot,
it. You
yeah.
guys are awesome. And I'm gonna give a shout out to one of my key mentors that participated. It looks like the whole podcast, John Monroe. Hey, dude, you shaped me, you helped me, you built me. You have not been forgotten, and I really appreciate you tuning in. And tell some of our colleagues that, you know, I didn't have a relationship that you might have with Frito-Lay, that you're still conversing with. Tell them to, you know, subscribe and tune in next time. And to all of our viewers, the same thing. Elvis?
Thanks for joining. Yeah, I would like to say one thing. I just want everyone to know that we're not the be all end all.
Yes.
We're giving our opinions, our experiences, and what we've been through. So if you've been through something different that might contradict or just have a different experience to what I shared or Claude or our thoughts, we are professionals, we are business oriented, and we do subscribe and live in the UPS world. So we dedicate our time to that. But it's always changing and growing and evolving. So when you have something to say or share, or something that might be different, or to compliment us, please feel free to chime in, to challenge us, to talk to us, and to also encourage. And if you have any stories, just share it with us.
Right.
Send us, you know, in the comments and emails. We're here, and share this podcast with so many more people, because it is growing, and it's a complementary to the Gruber Motors side too, and we're just constantly learning and growing. So just share with others, like Claude said, you know, send it to other people in your LinkedIn, in your Facebook, whatever it is. We're so connected right now, interconnected through social media. So if you can just like, subscribe, and share, would mean a lot. And thank you so much for everyone coming in and showing up today.
And just to cap it off, just one more view of the backdrop. Remember, he's the cooler guy, but I'm the hotter guy. See you guys next week.
See you.